Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to my inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. All right. Thank you for joining me again, guys. I've been away for a little bit, taking care of some family business, but now I'm back. And I am back with something that I have shared in the past, but I'm really excited about because I really did sort of a deep dive while I was away, working on some of my figure drawings. And what we're going to do, by the way, quick side note, right after this live stream ends, we're going to jump right into the Patreon live stream. I'm going to take like a 15-minute break to get a snack real quick, and then we're going to do that one because I haven't been able to do the Patreon live streams for the past couple weeks. So I want to get those in. I'm going to do one today, and then I'm going to try and do one sometime in the week of the evening, try to do it before the month's out. But what are we doing? We are back to figure drawing again. And this time, what we're going to do here, let me get my drawing board into position. Now that is weird. The screen does not seem to be updating. And I don't know if that's because I need to remove this and then add it again. Huh. Strangest thing. Let me see. All right. I'm going to remove this camera. Now I'm going to add the camera back. And there we go. Everything's fine. All right. Oh, wow. That's really weird. Okay. No, it's not. It is working. For a minute, I thought that it was working and then not working again. And first off, I see gang already in the chat. James says great poses. I appreciate that. Thank you. Chris is here on 2 streams. Well, I hope you're able to capture all the stuff that you're trying to check out from everything you're watching. Herman's already in the chat. Said same here. I just put a quick shout out before we started to let you guys, let everyone know that I was running a little bit late. Okay. So what I've been doing that is different. Let me move the camera back a little bit because I think for this one, you're going to need to see the whole drawing board. So let me get this sort of in position. So you have heard me mention before the importance and the power of flipping your drawings, looking at it from an inverted angle, looking at it from, flipping it horizontally so that you're looking at a mirror version of it, or flipping it upside down. Both of those help you see flaws that you have not seen before. Hi, Dylan. I see Dylan in the chat there too. Let's see here. Herman says, he's still waiting on a Windows 10 setup. I have the laptop Windows 11, but I love my 10 setup. Yeah, that kind of that's always challenging whenever your hardware has a new operating system, particularly if it's not playing nicely with the way that you prefer to work. I'm getting out my charcoal pencils here. I did something that in my mind, it sounded radical. To be honest, it's not particularly radical. Move this back just a little bit. But what I have been doing is, and let me free these drawings from my drawing board so I can find an appropriate sample to work from. So I've got a page here, and I made a little note for myself of inverted studies. So what these are is the same way that I normally do with the fixing of bad figure drawings. Hang on, notifications popping up. With fixing bad figure drawings, I'll draw the same pose and I'll draw it again and say, oh, well, this isn't right. Let me draw it like this and tweak that. And I'll try different things. I'll break it down into simple, primitive volumes and shapes. In fact, it's worth me turning the camera a little bit more so you can see all of this page. Zooming out a little bit more. But the difference here, as you can see, is that all of these are upside down. Because what I started doing, and I've done this both with drawing reference and with going over my old drawings. So maybe, I don't know if I'm going to do it next week's, a lot of figure drawing all at once. But sometime in the future, I'll show you another one. This one I'm going to show you working from my old drawings and redrawing them to make corrections. But I'm going to show you sometime in the future, I'll show you working from reference and drawing upside down. What this does is it literally rewires my brain. It's one thing to look at your drawings and just trying to correct them by seeing the mirror image. But in this case, these are all drawings, except for this little skull in the middle here. These are all drawings of figure studies that I did in class, in a workshop. And then I turned the whole page upside down and redrew from the upside down image. And hang on. And we'll come back to that later. Little notifications going off everywhere. And I see your comment there, James. I'll get to that in a sec. Point being is that drawing this way or drawing working from upside down reference, it forces your brain to see flaws in a way that you just did not see them before. And it really just rewires your brain. So I am going to, let me see here. There's some nice poses in here, but I'm going to try and find a few more that are upside down that I have not had a chance to redraw. See that one. There's a couple right side up ones that I worked from. Let me find a couple here. Let's see. This one might be good because I did not get far with this drawing, and it's a bit challenging because it also has some clothing on it as well. Okay, so before we dive into this, I see James has a comment here. Says, I'm curious about contour lines. Since you suggested working on those, I've been at that as much as I can, but I'm wondering if I should still draw faces and other things I'm interested in drawing. Sometimes I can feel limited and glued to something when I'm told to work in areas where I struggle, but I don't think that was your intent. Correct. That was not my intent. I never want you to sacrifice one area of study just so that you can work on the things that are challenging. I always feel that at heart, you get the best out of your art studies when you're doing something that you find exciting, invigorating, interesting, and challenging. And I think if you're doing nothing but tackling, difficult stuff, that's a way to burn yourself out. It is draining. It's mentally a lot. I find drawing things that are difficult interesting to me. I do find that's something that gets me going, gets me excited and energized, mainly because I like a good puzzle. I just like a good challenge. So for me, doing things that are difficult does get me more engaged. But if drawing stuff like contour lines is something you're doing because it's like eating your vegetables and you really are more interested in faces and what's the other thing you said? well, just drawing faces and other things you're interested in, then maybe it's more sort of like you work the contour lines into your process. Maybe you just say, all right, well, I'm going to study contour lines for 15 or 20 minutes a day and then draw faces the rest of the time. You don't have to do it all the time. You can work on it in baby steps. I think, in fact, that's probably one of the best things to do is to just give yourself baby steps in terms of the challenging things that you want to work on. Let's see here. Dylan says, last night I went to the re-release of Paranorman for its 13th anniversary. Had fun, loved it. Went to Johnny Rockets. Sounds like you are just having a great October. Fantastic. Let's see here. Amar is in the chat. Says hello all. And to Jeremy, he said, are we drawing upside down today? Yes, we are. All right, so for starters, I have to look at the camera real quick and get a bead on how much room I have to draw. So what I like to do is you can kind of see me making a light mark at the top of the page. And then I like to go down and make a mark at the bottom of the page. So this tells me how much you guys can see before I start drawing. I actually don't want to make the whole drawing that tall. I kind of like to focus in on that. But either way, I like to make a mark to let me know how tall the entire figure is going to be. Because honestly, it's about fitting all of the gesture and energy that you want into accurate proportions, accurate measurements. So I always like to start by making a mark for the entire length of the figure, dividing that in half, and I know that's going to be basically the upper body. And then from there, trying to get the rib cage separated from the lower body. And I just got a nice twist here. So I'm actually just drawing in a very simple, for the whole torso, one big rectangle. But I'm drawing it that way so I can emphasize the fact that the upper body is twisting slightly towards us. Lower body, basically, lower body twisting to the right, upper body twisting slightly to the left. And then from here, it's like trying to just draw with stick figures. Not because the whole thing should be stick figures, but because working with stick figures gives me the room to start playing with measurement and proportion. Now, I will tell you that drawing upside down, very much, this isn't like trying to do some sort of impressive trick or make people think, oh, cool, you can do that. This is, for me, it's a rigorous mental study. This is like drawing on hard mode. And there are artists who have been doing it for years, and it is something where they're like, yeah, I can do it. It's just a matter of concentration, and they figured it out. But if you haven't done this before, I urge you to try it, and not just try it once and say, oh, this is hard, this sucks. I urge you to try it, like maybe do it one day where you do it for like 2 or 3 different drawings, or maybe pick one, do it once a day for like a week. Because I think what's valuable here is seeing how your mind changes as you do this. Because the big thing that I noticed was that areas where I thought my measurements were decent, for instance, in drawing this upside down, I'm noticing that I have the leg going too far to the right. Like it's out so far that it's like their leg is really crossing over, when there's actually quite a bit of foreshortening and the knee is sort of just outside. Like if you were to follow a line from the shoulder straight down, the knee is sort of just outside of that. It's not all the way over here. It's in a significant amount closer than what I drew. And that's also important because if this knee is in, the leg that is on the far right, her far right leg, that now makes sense, being the knee for that one being out a little bit farther. In fact, it's out and down a little bit. Because otherwise, if this thing was all the way out, then it would be impossible for this knee to be, the second knee to be even farther out, because it would just be too long. So, and these are things that I would not have caught in the past. And that is the benefit of this technique of drawing upside down. It is very, very hard. It takes a lot more concentration than usual, which is part of the reason why I haven't looked at the chat for a minute while I'm doing this. Although sometimes, you know how I am. I'll get on a rant and I'll be talking, and then I'll look up and there's like, you guys have been talking to me for 20 minutes and I've been ignoring you. But in this case, this is something that, and I will also say that this is not necessarily a technique that I would recommend for everybody. The reason why, this goes back to James' question about, should I ignore drawing things that I enjoy for the sake of studying things that I need to get better at? I don't think this technique is, I don't like trying to separate artists into beginners and advanced experienced artists, because artists of all levels can learn things from artists of all levels. I honestly believe that. Like somebody who has been drawing for 20 or 30 years can be sitting in a class next to somebody who it's their first night figure drawing, and see them do something. And maybe it's just how they draw naturally, or maybe it's their approach, their mental approach, or maybe they just happen to have been exposed to somebody that that this artist hasn't. Maybe they're just naturally a gifted artist, but you can turn and look to somebody who's been drawing for a lot less time and just see them do something and go, oh my God, I never thought of the figure this way. That is a tangent. What I was going to say about this technique is that I don't think this technique is sort of a shits and giggles technique, because it's tedious. And when I said earlier that I get excited by finding things that are hard, that are difficult for me, finding new ways to push myself, not everyone is going to enjoy that. And by the same token, I'm showing you this because if you genuinely are like, I want to improve my draftsmanship, I simply want to draw better, doing this will show you how to draw better. But I can't say that it's fun. It's exciting for a certain type of mindset, which is the mindset I have, where it's like, if you like playing a video game on hard mode, then you will like this, because this technique is drawing on hard mode. But that said, if you do not, if you're somebody who likes to play on God mode and you just want shit to work, this might not be for you. So while I'm taking the time to show you this, while I believe that it's extremely powerful, I think it's a great tool for seeing your drawing in a whole new light, I give you the caveat that it's going to be kind of a buyer beware, or sort of each person is going to have their own experience with this. So while I urge you to try it, I don't want you to try it and then say, this is so hard, this is not fun, I give up, I'm not going to draw. This is not something that I feel like everyone has to do. But if you're somebody who is obsessed with getting better, and you're looking for, just show me how to get better, if you can force yourself to do this, long enough to get to the point where you actually discover, oh, I can now see things in proportion and volume that I couldn't see before, it's worth it. This is a super shortcut, but it's like taking a shortcut through a field of rose thorns. It's hard and it stings and it's really, really challenging. So, I mean, that's a lot to say, but I feel like that's the truth of this technique. It's incredibly powerful. It's also can be somewhat unpleasant. Not unpleasant. It's just for me it is pleasant because I like challenge. But the level of challenge, the level of difficulty of this, the video game is the best metaphor I can think of for it. Let's see here. Oh, hey, Gary showed up. Gary Hodges from Dinosaurs vs. Mars Bots. Good to see you, Gary. Great as always. All right, I'm going to scroll back up to the comments in the chats there. Oh yeah, James was talking about they were talking about Dylan going to see Paranorman and then going to Johnny Rockets afterwards. And James says, Johnny Rockets had a milkshake when I went to CineQuest in San Jose while I was waiting for a screening to open. Yeah, I haven't been to Johnny Rockets in ages. And now that I moved out of the LA area, I don't know if I will ever go to one again. But, always nice to find a good burger joint. Let's see here. Dylan says, I recently got a big stack of comics, all in Aquaman 1 through 10, all in Batman 1 and 2, Transformers Worst Plot Ever, Zatanna Bring Down the House, Point Character 1 and 2, drawing books from Taco. Sounds like that's a nice haul of books. Yeah, I have not. Honestly, I've been reading some old ass Wally Wood comics from the library. They have a collection of a spy comic called Cannon by Wally Wood about this guy named Johnny Cannon or John Cannon, who basically, it's like if they got the Manchurian Candidate, instead of making him run for president, the United States discovered that he had been brainwashed, unbrainwashed him, and turned him into James Bond, like a killing machine. He just ends up like meeting women and going on crazy, violent adventures. It's definitely dated, but the art and storytelling is the storytelling. The only thing that's dated really is the dialogue and some of the characterizations, but the actual visual panel-to-panel storytelling, the action in it is fantastic. The art is fantastic. So I've just been reading old stuff. I haven't read anything new in a while, but I'm glad that there's a lot of new stuff out on the shelves, Dylan, that you're checking out. I did see that my library has copies of all of the first 3 Absolute titles. They have the Absolute Superman, Absolute Batman, and Absolute Wonder Woman. Out of the 3, Absolute Wonder Woman is probably the one I'm the most interested in. I don't know when I'll get a chance to read them because I also want to read. I heard about the Vertigo relaunch and how they've got out of the 10 new titles, one of the titles that's coming back is 100 Bullets, and I never finished 100 Bullets. I read, like, my buddy Carl got me the first volume as a gift one time, and I think I've read like the first 3 volumes of 100 Bullets, but the library has the whole series. So that's probably next on my list to read is trying to read 100 Bullets just to get through it because, everyone says it's a fantastic crime comic and I enjoyed it. I just never finished it. Let's see here. So Dylan says, for everyone, how do you decide on story ideas? I'm writing down all my ideas for Absolute Aquaman fan fiction, but I'm not sure which directions to go. So Amar says, this is back to the, so we're going to mix it up here, a little bit of drawing stuff, and we're probably going to get into some of the writing stuff. So Amar says, I find drawing with my opposite hand or only using one line with a ballpoint pen even more challenging. Well, you know what? Drawing with your non-dominant hand is very, very challenging as well. But the idea here is not challenging myself for the sake of challenge. It's not doing something hard just because it's hard. It's doing this because this helps improve a very particular skill, which is your sense of proportion and your sense of volume. What this does, drawing with it's more about what I'm seeing than it is the motor skills that I'm using to do it. Training to draw with your non-dominant hand, I think it actually does have some benefits, but the benefits are more about freeing up your brain so you're thinking less about what you're drawing and more about, or actually no, it's I'm trying to think of how I heard my drawing instructor Carl Ganas mention it once, and I'm trying to think of how he phrased it. But the idea of doing something when you have a lot less control than you normally do, um, and how it can sort of free you up a little bit. That's a different type of exercise than what I'm doing. The exercise in what I'm doing is literally about improving your perception. That a lot of times we think we see the figure in a certain way, and then you look at it later and you're like, how did I not see that mistake? How did I not see that this arm was too long or this torso was too wide? How did I miss those things? And this exercise is specifically to address that because you see the figure in ways that you did not see it before. You now, all of these things, these misperceptions are kind of laid bare. So that's the point of this exercise. It's not just drawing something hard because it's hard. So there's a point to it. Oh, yeah. Amar says, but I get the switch in your brain you're talking about. And then when we're talking about drawing on hard mode, Herman says, that's me. Quit real fast when it gets rough. Psych. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, not everyone enjoys doing hard stuff. The video game metaphor still, I can't think of a better one, just because for people who really want to do something in the hardest way possible, and it just, the challenge really gets them going. That's I can see that. I'm one of those people. Let's see here. Dylan asks, did anybody see Leica's new trailer for their new movie Wildwood? I have not. I've not heard of that, but I will have to check it out. Let's see here. Oh, but Amar says that he just shared it on the Discord, so I will definitely have to check that out after the live stream. Which, by the way, guys, I just want to let you know, I mentioned it at the top of the show. After we finish this live stream, I'm gonna take a short break, probably like 20 minutes, just to get a snack, and then we're gonna go into the Patreon live stream because I was away for a couple of weeks, wasn't able to do a Patreon live stream, and I wanted to get another one in for this month. So we're gonna do that after this live stream. So I'll give you guys a reminder, heads up, at the end. But let's see. So Herman says, I'm right now challenging myself with writing. I'm coming up with concepts and getting the ideas and maybe understanding what to do, understanding when to do dialogue and when to just let the art talk. Okay, and by the way, this is interesting that you guys mentioned this about the writing and the fanfic, because I was trying to decide what to do for the Patreon live stream because I hadn't decided for sure what book to do next. But as you guys know, I've really been dragging ass with writing the Pandora's Box comic. So what I was going to do is instead I'm going to do a writing sprint, which is when I just have my computer on or my camera on and just sit and write. So it's not going to be an art live stream. It's going to be a writing live stream, but I'll still have the Discord. Well, I'll just have StreamYard open so you guys can talk if you want to talk while we're doing it. But since I'll be working on writing, if you want, it can be more of just sort of a shop talk about writing. We can go into more of these conversations while we're doing it. But I will tell you, Dylan, when it comes to trying to decide which idea to do or which one to go with, ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution is what matters. And what that means is it's not that your ideas are unimportant, but choosing the right idea is not necessarily as important as choosing an idea, just picking something and going forward with it. Because in the hands of a talented writer, you can take a really crappy premise and make something amazing out of it. And by the same token, in the hands of a mediocre writer, you can take a brilliant idea and you just end up with something that's like meh. So, what I would suggest is do whatever sounds the funnest. Do whatever you're going to enjoy the most. Do the one that you're actually going to finish. Don't worry too much about picking the right idea. And I will tell you that this is a do as I say, not as I do thing. I spend way too much time on my ideas. I really do. I should just crank them out and move on to the next one. Amar's been with me for a long time. We've had this conversation a million times. He knows it's true. You are better off just doing an idea, not even worrying about whether it's good or bad, and then moving on to your next idea and just continually just churning ideas out. You will learn way more and you'll grow faster as an artist doing that than worrying about picking the right idea, executing it the right way. Just doing, whether it's good or bad, you will learn more and get more done that way. And if I had to say that I have on the writing side, well, on the creative side in general, for as much as I encourage you guys to just dive forward, my biggest weakness is that I really sit on ideas and mull them over and try to make them perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I need to fight it. It's like it's killing me creatively. I freely admit it. That is my hugest weakness. And I don't want to see you fall into the same trap that I do. Just make shit. Particularly because it's Aquaman fanfic. Who cares if it's like the perfect idea? It's the idea is for you to have fun because you enjoy Aquaman and just want to make up cool shit. So go for it. All right, back to the comments. Herman says, I've been looking at Mobius, gonna get a couple of his books, been looking at it, his art online. Yeah, Mobius is, he is definitely one of the international goats. I have a couple of Mobius books. One of them is his Western Blueberry. By the way, I think I've pushed this about as far as I can, and to be honest, I probably drew this a little bit too small in terms of like too small to properly analyze and make comparisons in terms of this figure. But I think the only thing that this is really missing is sort of the division. Like there's a little part here where the tummy is sort of bent forward a little bit where that twist is happening. I think that's about the only thing that this could use. I mean, part of it's a tiny little stick figure, and I probably really should be drawing this larger. Let's see here. This might work better. This upside down figure standing upright and stretching. In fact, what I'll probably do is I'm going to shift the camera over. Well, that's going to get real awkward if I'm drawing with my hand crossing over the reference. See, this is where it'd be nice in digital. You can just take this, slide it over to the screen. I could draw the next one right here, right next to it. I'll have to figure this out. Let me look at some more comments while my brain tries to figure out how to fix this puzzle I've created for myself. Let's see here. Dylan says, I found out yesterday that All In Aquaman is going to continue after 12 issues. I am beyond excited. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad. I have not been reading any of the All In books, but I'm glad that they are coming out well and that you're getting a lot out of them. James says, hard. Yeah, I've heard elementary students say an assignment is hard, so I usually say life is hard. Yeah, it's true. I prefer challenging to hard. I just like hard mode because I don't think video games has the same ring when you go like easy, medium, or challenging mode. Let's see here. Herman says, that's wild, Dylan. I was never into Aquaman like that. Any of the current or old runs, I can probably grab up. If the graphic novels let me know, I'm kind of going in that direction. Yeah, I mean, for me, all the old stuff I'm reading. Pardon me for the frog in my throat. I don't know what is going on, but I'm like gravelly. But let me get a little sip of coffee. But yeah, usually for me, it's all about reading old stuff for the library because I have so many books now that like my wife will kill me if I bring another book into the house. So it's like I'm leaning really hard on the library for comic reading. And the great Jim Lujan says, "Hello, kind sir. Good to see you." Hello, Jim. I'm looking forward to the exciting upcoming climax of the Unicornians. Jim has been making a ton of progress. If you have not checked out Unicornians at jimluhan.com, or if you just search for Jim Lujan on YouTube, it'll take you to his page where you can watch the Unicornian series. It is a fantastic, um, let's say, humorous journalistic cult thriller. If you were to combine Fletch with the Righteous Gemstones, I'd say that's that's about a good description of it. Tell me if you think that's fair, Jim. Dylan says Jeff Johns' run on the New 52 is good. I'm not even close to being halfway through it yet, but so far it's good. All in Aquaman is good as well. Those are the only ones I've read. Let's see here. Oh, Herman says, I just came up with a detective horror story and figured out the beginning and the end as far as the story. I think it may be great, but the challenging part is figuring out the art. See, that's the interesting thing to me. Like, I really, really focus on spending a lot of time. Let's just go to a new sheet. Well, actually, yeah, I don't care. We'll go to a new sheet. I need to get a setup where I've got just the reference and the standard image. This is one of the advantages of drawing where I'm working digitally is I can just have the reference up on the screen and be drawing on the side and then just turn off one image and put on another, bring up more reference, get rid of another one. In fact, I mean, you guys tell me whether it really matters to you, whether you see me doing this traditionally or digitally, because it would probably be easier for me to just take a photo of this and then do the redrawing on the tablet and just have this image up on the screen. Like you'd be able to see it clear. I'd be able to see what I'm doing. I really like the feeling of the charcoal, working traditionally, having my hand on the drawing surface. But if you guys don't care, then maybe that will be the way that I'll do it next time. Because I considered doing it for this stream and just ended up not having time to get everything ready and set up. Let's see here. Like I said, I make a line to indicate the top and bottom of the figure. And I know that the halfway point is where the legs begin. So I can just start by blocking it in very simply that way. And then from there, very simple, about 2/3 of the way down will be about where the rib cage ends, where the shoulders are. So I can sort of put a little stick figure in for her, sort of bent that way. Stick figure for the arms, hands. Oh, we're talking about stuff that we watched. I did a review of it on Patreon, but I saw Weapons last night. Woo-wee! That is a good movie. My wife and I both thought it got really, really slow in the second half of the movie, and it did. It slowed down to the point where we were like, "Really? We're still doing this?" But it earned its ending. I will say that it is the most satisfying ending I have seen for a horror film in a long time. So if you're watching some horror stuff, Zach Cregger, the guy who did Barbarian. This is his next movie or second movie. Came out during the summer, and I've been wanting to see it since then. And it's always gratifying when a movie that you've been looking forward to lives up to the hype. I feel like it lived up to the hype. So as long as we're talking entertainment and movies and such, I give not Barbarian, I give Weapons a fully throated endorsement. Really enjoyed it. All right, more talk. Oh yeah, so Herman was saying the challenging part is figuring out the art. Well, let me just see what else you say before I comment in on that. Let me see. Dylan says, my main idea is somewhat close to Absolute Batman's Rogue Gallery of effed upness, but I want it to be unique since the Absolute stories are pretty different. So thinking about going in a different, let's see here. Herman says, I'm thinking about doing a concept sheet of characters that I will be able to consistently draw. So come up with characters I like to draw and can accept the way they look, have to be established. Okay, this is something that I find challenging too, and I have often joked that I should do my model sheets for characters when I'm done, because I change the way that I draw a character throughout an entire series. Like if you look at Morningstar, the way Lucifer looks in Volume 1, I wouldn't say he looks completely different. Like he's still recognizable by the end of the way he looks at issue 1 versus issue 8. He definitely changes. All the characters change. I would say that, yes, keeping character consistency is challenging. Yes, it's something to work towards. But I feel like learning how to do it is a muscle that's built up over time. So unless you've done a ton of comics already, it's like, yeah, the character's going to shift. The character's going to change. And I think even a lot of established pros will say, yeah, my character morphs. My characters morph over time. So I think, let us say, yes, I agree that doing a model sheet is a worthwhile exercise. I've done model sheets for mine as well. In the end, they end up just being like an interesting artifact to share in sketchbooks and behind the scenes pages and process pages of a comic at the end. I rarely stick to my model sheets. I should, but I don't. Consistency of character design is another one of my weaknesses as well. So I share that. And it's interesting that I have some weaknesses that really, really hang me up. And there's some weaknesses that I'm just like, oh, well. The character design thing is one of those things where I'm just like, I'll get it as close as I can. Yeah, I don't know why. It should bother me more. It doesn't. I try, but it is what it is. Let's see here. Herman says, "Gee, got that Wolverine voice going on." You know what? That's not getting enough sleep and not drinking enough coffee and getting old, because my voice has always been kind of high pitched and blah blah blah. Like the idea of me having a gravelly voice is highly amusing, because I have never been the gravelly voice kind of guy ever. So. Other than telling my wife good morning this morning, talking to you guys is the first conversations I'm having. So so that's definitely, playing a part in the graveliness. Herman says Fletch. I haven't seen that movie in years. They did a remake of Fletch with John Hamm, and honestly, I usually don't talk about films unless I love them. I love John Hamm as an actor. I did not think that the movie Fletch was a great movie, and I don't think that they used John Hamm as well as they could have. It had all the elements. The plot was good. The premise was good. I think that John Hamm can be very funny. It just didn't quite work for me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm due to go back and watch the Chevy Chase one. Herman says, plus I see myself doing graphic novels, 50 to 100 pages tops. I want to do great art, but I don't want it to be samey. He says, I know that's not a word. No, I think samey is in the dictionary. You can look it up. It says, I want each thing I work on to be different. So are you thinking kind of like Stephen King, where each one is a separate story, but maybe the through line is more of your storytelling and the themes that you explore? Is that kind of what you're thinking? Yeah, Dylan says, understandable, Herman. Yes. And Gary says, I keep hearing Weapons is great. He said, I'm dragging my feet, though, because I didn't like Barbarian. Saw Frankenstein last night, and it's excellent. Okay, good. We haven't been doing the movie theater thing lately, but I know Frankenstein is coming to Netflix in November, so I look forward to that. I can see why you would have criticisms of Barbarian, because Barbarian is good, but it is a little bit uneven. And I will say that those flaws are definitely fixed in Weapons. It is very tense, and it plays a lot on suspense as opposed to horror. It is a suspense film. Like, in fact, when it came up on HBO, we saw that it was listed as a drama. And I'm like, why they list this as a drama? This is a horror film. It is absolutely a horror film, but it's a suspense film, and not a suspense film that relies on jump scares, even though there are a few of those. It's definitely more of a very tense, bizarre situation in which tension keeps getting ratcheted up. I would definitely encourage you to give it a try. The only criticism I have of Weapons is that it has a Rashomon type structure, where once you know the premise that you see in the trailer, that they give you all of that in the very beginning of the movie. 17 kids in one elementary school class get up in the middle of the night, run out of their homes, and disappear into the night. And then the town goes crazy trying to find them. Parents are obviously upset. That's all like in the first 5 minutes of the movie. And then from there, what happens is a Rashomon type story structure where you follow different people. You follow the school teacher whose class is the class that disappeared. She's the only class where all the kids that disappeared came from hers. You follow the teacher, you follow one of the parents, you follow a principal, you follow a local police officer. And all of these people, you get their perspective on bits and pieces of what is happening and why. My only criticism of the film is that it spends a little bit too much time with each of those stories. All of those stories are important. All of the stories convey important character moments and important story moments. It just felt like each section could have been edited down, and you probably could have gotten about 15, 20 minutes off of the total runtime. It felt like it didn't need to be as long as it is. That is my only criticism of Weapons. And I will forgive it starting to feel tedious because of how satisfied I was with the ending. So I would definitely love, Gary, if you watch it, I would love to hear your feedback on what you think of it later on. Herman, thank you. He says, "Word G, your Morningstar books are great, man. Really enjoyed the art. Love the first, but I thought the second book really showed your graphic design sense. It just popped even more. Loved it. You know what, dude? Thank you. I really appreciate that. I tried to really work on. I try to work on all elements of it and make it, make this story exciting and engaging. But to hear you say that is very, very gratifying to me, because I think, believe it or not, the longer I've been doing comics, the less I feel like the actual draftsmanship, which is weird that I'm spending so much time working on the draftsmanship, but I'm really starting to feel like the draftsmanship isn't anywhere near as important as the story itself, the narrative, and then the storytelling. So the storytelling, I'm defining that as your actual pacing and your page composition, the composition of each panel, And whether that is well drawn or not, to me, I'm starting to feel like is actually secondary to how well it conveys what you're trying to do story wise. So I'm glad that that's coming through because that's where I'm trying to put more and more of my energy these days. Um, if I could really just cut loose and let go, I would do an entire comic where it's loose and sketchy, almost like my thumbnails, but just work the story. In fact, I need to go back and reread Dave McKean's Cages because yes, Dave McKean does these incredibly beautiful, elaborate photo collages and complicated stuff like his Sandman covers, but his sequential comic book storytelling in Cages, it feels like it's a master class in getting to the point because Dave McKean can draw his ass off, but a lot of the pages, sequential pages, are very rough and they're very simple. But it's not bad. It's not like he's doing crappy drawing. It's just he is focused on pushing the narrative and the story and the actual line work itself, the individual details of an eye or a face or a figure. He draws well enough that he doesn't need to show off and prove how well he draws. He's just focused on the storytelling. And I aspire to get to that. And it's sad that I'm just learning that now because, to be honest, I think I could have just focused on cranking out as much story as possible and helping it just trying to grow through that and let the drawings. I guess going back to what you were saying before, Herbert, about trying to work out the art. Trying to work out the art is kind of the same thing as trying to find your style. Like you don't find your style finds you. I say just start telling your story. The characters, they'll work themselves out. The style, it'll work itself out. Your visual language on the page, the way that you compose panels, that will work itself out. You know, and we're all looking to have the answers before we start. And sadly, that is not how creativity works. You get the answers through the doing. The actual making of the thing is the important part. Yes, I'm doing studies to try and draw better, but this is because I enjoy doing these studies and because I'm interested in draftsmanship, but I don't think that draftsmanship is essential to making good comics. I really don't. You look at a ton of successful web comics and they're successful oftentimes. Like you look at something like XKCD, which is all stick figures. There's a lot of webcomics that are successful because they're crudely drawn. And I don't say that to discourage you from wanting to get better. I'm just saying that the draftsmanship unto itself, when it comes to narrative storytelling, is not always the point. There's some people that are always going to be like, you look at McFarlane, people are always going to love McFarlane comics because McFarlane's an amazing artist. And they're never really going to care whether the story is great or not. They're like, they get off on Todd's artwork, on his line work and his page composition, and that's always going to do it for him. And then there's some people who may not be great artists, but they're telling compelling stories that you're drawn to. And for those same people, that's going to be what pulls folks in. Let's see here. Herman says, the fact that you did a Western is a lot. He said, I'm inspired to go all out, but don't take much time for design when creating the work. Well, first off, thank you. You would think after doing 8 issues of a Western that I'd draw horses better. I want to do another Western just because I feel like I still haven't mastered the horse. By the way, Mira Chat says, hello, everybody. Sorry it took me so long to get to your comment. I'm sort of running behind as I go and draw and talk with everyone. But, I kind of go through here and catch comments and get caught up on the chat as I'm scrolling through. But welcome. If you're new to the channel, please hit like and subscribe. Definitely spread the word. Let's see here. Herman Herman says, artistically design. If the character is cartoony or realistic, or limit the art, but consistency to the concept design. Figuring out now to lock it in and get it down when I when I start. Um, it says I'm writing a lot, finishing the stories, then working on the dialogue probably as I go. Since I have a concept somewhat established, the story somewhat established, it will try to help when it comes time for me to do the art. I'm just throwing in words there because I presume that's what you meant. Um, I will tell you. Here's a thought on the writing that I find useful. I think I've mentioned this before, but my whole thing about dialogue is simply that, again, another weakness of mine. But because I know it is, what I do is I try to just come up with placeholder on the nose dialogue as I go. I write dialogue as I need it, as opposed to sitting down and doing a pass just to write dialogue. When I'm doing my story outline, like when I'm just sort of like breaking down the simple premise, when I'm doing that, I will think up lines of dialogue. And when I do, I make a note of them and I will add them to my script. Then as I go through and I do thumbnails and I'm breaking down the story visually, I will think of more lines of dialogue. And as I do, write them down. And then, I go and I do my lettering pass. And that's when I actually have to put words on the page. And that's probably when I do the most actual writing. But even then, it's just writing down stuff and not worrying about whether it's final or not. Because I'm going to go through and then I'm going to pencil the comic book. And when I pencil it, I think of new lines of dialogue and I'll just drop them into my my script document. I try not to necessarily go back and re-letter until I'm really done. I try to read letter until I go through my other passes because I'm going to think up more lines of dialogue. What I mean is I go through and I do my rough pencils, or I don't pencil. I do layouts and then I ink. I don't do a tight pencil stage. But when I go and I do my my layouts, I think up lines of dialogue and I will just dump them into my my script document. When I go through and I ink, I think up more lines of dialogue and I'll just dump those in. And then once I'm done inking and I go in and do gray tones, that's usually when I will go in and I'll do another pass and say, all right, where are the places where I'm just unhappy with the dialogue? And at that point, that's when I will try to finalize things. Because usually what will happen is if I'm not actively trying to write finished dialogue, I'll think up lines that work. But trying to sit there and say, oh, okay, it's writing time. Now I have to write dialogue. It puts a lot of mental pressure on me and I can sort of freeze up. So if I just let it occur to me as I'm working on different stages of the book, and in fact, when I'm not thinking about writing is when I come up with the best lines of dialogue. So I just keep track of the lines of dialogue as I'm moving through thumbnailing, layouts, inking, gray tones. And then when I'm done with the whole thing, I'll go through and I'll do a pass where I really say, all right, where are the places where the dialogue really sucks? And that's the point where I will sit down and force myself to really come up with something better. But until then, I just let myself think up lines of dialogue and just toss them in as placeholders. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of that placeholder dialogue, it's not that it's spot on, but I will just, as I'm going, I'll just think of little tweaks. And I'm like, oh, I just needed to move some words around or just change this one sentence or whatever is the thing that actually sounds cool will come to me. Like maybe even while I'm not even working on the comic, the same way that like with most people, you're taking a shower or you're taking a walk or you're doing the dishes and something pops into your head. And when they pop into my head, I just note them. I just write them down and I save them for when I come back to do my rewrites. And that takes care of 90% of my writing of dialogue. So yeah, that's kind of my, that's my method. remove all the pressure and just catch dialogue as it comes. All right. And we're getting to about an hour here. So like I said, I'm going to go through these last couple of comments. We'll wrap up this live stream. And if anyone has any questions, because I've been doing this whole drawing upside down thing, if you have any questions relating to this, let me know and I'll answer those. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break for about 20 minutes. We're going to do the Patreon live stream. And when I do that, I'll have the instead of having the voice channel open, I'll just share the StreamYard link so that the patrons can come in and you can talk if you want. But I'm going to be doing writing instead of drawing. And I'm working on, I shared a spreadsheet, which should appear for the public in a couple of days, like midweek. But a spreadsheet that I'm using as an outlining tool. And I'm sort of re-outlining my book because I've got just too much garbage. It's gotten too dense and I need to just get back to basics. So if you guys want to talk about outlining and more, we can do that during the Patreon live stream. So we'll be doing that a little bit later today. So last couple of comments here. Dylan says, I'm trying to get over the idea of needing to be a pro at drawing in order to create comics. I see people creating and selling their comics and mini comics that are beginner level 1. And he says, One Punch Man started out with the creator not being a pro at drawing, but grew to a huge fan base anyway. And Dylan says, yeah, Dylan, I'm having a hard time with that, but I need to psychologically be able to accept my work and get it done because I can draw for me. Just probably is me accepting that others will appreciate it. And then Don says, same. You know what? Well, I am the same as both of you. When I published my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, it wasn't my first published comic work. I had worked with a couple of indie studios when I was in high school and early college. None of that work is good. But when I sat down to do my graphic novel, my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, it's a psychological thriller. And the whole reason why I picked that book was because I already had Morningstar in mind. And I knew I could not draw well enough to do Morningstar. I knew I couldn't do it justice. In fact, I've been threatening to do this for years. I've been threatening to publish, or at least on Patreon, publish the original version of Morningstar that I drew in college. So Morningstar, originally I drew it in I drew a short story, like a 1 issue or like I don't know, well, maybe it was a 12-page story, something like that. Back in around 97, 96, 97. It was before the 2000s. So well over 25 years ago, Morningstar was created in my mind. But I could not draw well enough to do what my actual vision was. I tried and failed. So then I said, all right, well, what is a contained story that I can do? Something that's within my abilities. So, the premise of Eye of the Gods, a artist who's going blind, has a surgery to correct his vision and then starts seeing murders happen. It was really simple, really straightforward. I knew what the mechanism was that was going to cause him to have these visions. And I knew how I was going to resolve the story. And that's really all you need to know, which, by the way, Herman, the fact that you said you know the beginning and end of the story, to me, those are the hardest parts of writing. Now that you got that, in my mind, it's all gravy. I had actually given up the idea of being a professional comic book artist before I had started Eye of the Gods. I just felt like there were, if you look at Marvel, DC, Image, and the amount of books that were in the market, I felt like there wasn't space for me to do an actual comic book and get it out there and get it published. But my friend Carl Altstetter encouraged me. He said, look, the story's interesting. You draw well enough. He's like, if you enjoy making comics, just make comics. So the first graphic novel I published for me. I can look at it now. I still have a lot to learn, but I draw better than I drew in that book. I stand behind it because I still feel like it's an interesting story. I still feel like the art has value in it, but it's far from perfect. It's very flawed in a lot of places, and I could easily redraw every single page of that book and make it 10 times better. There is no shortcut to being good. You have to just make the thing, and you have to enjoy making the thing. So that's my biggest advice to both you, Dylan, and Herman, is just enjoy being creative. Tell the story you want to tell. It's not going to be perfect. I fight with perfection on a writing level the same way that you guys are fighting with perfection with the art level. And to be honest, I fight with perfection on the art level too. It's just I've learned how to draw well enough that I'm like, I can let it go. It's still not quote unquote good enough, but I get to the point where I'm like, all right, I can work with this, or it's publishable. That's about where I get. But the struggle that you guys are talking about is a struggle that you're not alone in. Like, it's not just, oh, you've got it. Like Herman's talking about it, and then Dylan's like, hey, I've got the same struggle. Everybody in this chat has that struggle. In one way or another, there's something about us not being able to make things the way we really see them in our heads that holds all of us back. Everyone here on the chat and in the stream, we have the same struggle. And I'm telling you, there's no magic way around it. You just have to make the thing, accept that it's not going to be what is in your head, try to enjoy the process and to learn from the process, and then make the next thing you make better. And then just repeat until you die. That's it. That's all there is. If you enjoy the act of creating, then living with the fact that it's imperfect is kind of the price of getting to enjoy the creative process. But that's it. That's it. So me telling you not to worry is like telling a parent not to worry when their kid goes off to school or goes off to college. You're going to worry. You're going to worry about your style. You're going to worry about the craft. You're going to worry about whether your idea is original or not. Most ideas are not original. It's okay. Tell them anyway. I can tell you that we're all trying to get over ourselves and just make stuff and try to make it as cool as possible. We're all fighting that same struggle. And it's not just everyone in this chat and everyone in the stream. That is the nature. I truly believe that is the nature of creativity. And that's like, we're constantly fighting imposter syndrome and fear and insecurity. And that is the struggle, is to overcome that inertia to birth something into the world that connects with other people. Yeah, I think that is a good note for us to wrap up on. So let's see here. Last couple of comments. Herman says, I'm thinking about different ways to design. I'm from a fine arts background, so I have to be engaged. So I think, so sometimes I think OG comic style or traditional paintings or old school watercolor. It says, I just have to be able to look in at the beginning of concepts so I won't get lost later. It says, I hit up the like button. Gee, I appreciate that, man. Everyone, hit that like button. If you're new and you're just catching a stream, hit that subscribe button. And he says, hey, G, I'll probably send you my old Wix art site so you can see some of my old artwork I used to do on your Discord to show that I'm not trash drawing. Dude, I told you that first time that we did the Magma group drawing board, which we need to do another one of those because we haven't done it in ages. But I told you when I saw your drawings in there that I was like, man, you keep talking your art down. I'm like, you draw. I'm like, your draftsmanship's better than mine. I'm like, just go make your comic. I don't know what you're giving yourself so much grief for. And I see I sit on a throne of methadone in the chat. It says, hello all. Hello, throne. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Hopefully I will see you around here. We do these usually on a weekly basis, Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Herman says, would you ever revamp a book you did before? I mean, the George Lucas, like he did with Star Wars for 4, 5, and 6. Would I revamp it? No, because I feel like that's just a waste of energy. I would go and put that energy towards making something new. That said, I am thinking about relettering the first issue of Morningstar specifically for mobile comics, because I'm trying to figure out how exactly I want to lay out the new comic book. Because I really want to try and push. I want to design my next comic book for mobile. I don't plan to put it on Webtoons, but I feel like that is where people are consuming content. I prefer having the entire comic book page and being able to use page design, but being that I'm not in comic shops, or at least not many comic shops, I'm not getting in front of people in bookstores. I feel like it would behoove me to try and create work for the device that people are currently experiencing entertainment on. And I'm thinking, as opposed to just drawing the new comic and seeing how it goes, it might be worthwhile to take at least the first issue and play with it and see what happens if I reformat it to a mobile device settings. So that is the closest to George Lucasing my work as I would do, Herman. Gary says, right, if someone says my drawing couldn't improve, they can't actually draw. If they say your drawing can improve if you don't try to draw. Everyone's art can improve. That's kind of the whole point of it. I mean, that's the joy of it, is that for me, the fact that I'll never be finished is one of the things that keeps me interested in art. That there's no end point where I will have mastered it. There's always gonna be something new to learn and to challenge me. And the inability to attain perfection is the draw. It's the allure. And I know that sounds insane, because it's like, why are you signing yourself up for a lifetime of frustration? Well, that's only if you don't find joy in learning and struggle. And I say struggle in terms of like positive growth, building muscle, lifting weights mentally and creatively to challenge yourself to get stronger. I find joy in those things. So I can understand someone saying that they want to just be done or be good enough or have their style solved so that they're just finished and they can just make stuff. For me, it's like a lifetime of, like, I could spend, if I were to learn something new every day, like people talk about like being a vampire and how much of a curse it would be. If I were to learn something new every day, immortality would not be a curse to me, because learning is one of the most gratifying things for me, from my experience as a human being. I love it. And as long as I continue to learn, I'm in forever. Corey says, repeat until you die. Well, see, but that's the thing. If I'm immortal, I've just countered that. But I'm glad that was the one that resonated with you. You know what? That's what I'm calling this stream later when I rename it. Repeat until you die. And thanks for popping in, Corey. It's always good to see you. All right. Herman says, I agree, bro. If I learn about how to do that mobile stuff, I will let you know. I want to be flawless in how you click on the art and the screen follows the art. So yeah, I learn when you learn. Well, we're all going to keep learning together. And on that note, after this stream, so like I said, I'm going to take about 20 minutes, take a quick break, get a snack. We're going to be doing the Patreon exclusive live stream after this. And for that one, it's going to be all writing. I'm not going to be doing any art. So a lot of the story stuff we talk about here, going to talk about there too. But really, it's just going to be me sitting at the keyboard, filling out a spreadsheet. You want to see how I'm not telling you it's going to be compelling. I'm just telling you this is what the behind the scenes of the writing is getting into weird logistic tricks to get your brain to just build bricks, just stacking bricks. That's what it is. I'm just stacking story bricks. I'm building the foundation for my story. But we'll be doing that. So I guess probably like in a half hour, less than a half hour. I'll send out the link on Patreon and on Discord for the subscribers. But on that note, if you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams like the one we'll be doing after this, you can head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. It's little as $2 a month gets you in. There's higher tiers for higher rewards, but head on over and sign up. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress, animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you're digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a standalone psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It is a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 8 and 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter. There's thumbnails, character designs, page layouts, script excerpts, and more. Basically show you how I put the entire comic book together. And you can also pick up my art book, Wound, The Art of Jeremy Burley, Volume 1. There are book flip-throughs for all the comic books. If you go to the homepage of my YouTube, scroll down to the flip-throughs playlist, and it's just a video of me flipping through the pages so you can see what's inside before you pick it up. All right, guys. Again, thank you for hanging out. It is great to be back. Great to see all of you. Look forward to doing it again next week. And that's it for now. Go be creative.